Hey there, and welcome to The Fear Factor, the podcast that shines a light on real stories, smart strategies, and the occasional hard truth about running a business. Think of this as your quick dose of clarity before your first cup of coffee. Let's go. Today, I have the pleasure of speaking with Ruby Powers. She's an attorney, she's a writer, she's a speaker. You're kind of busy, I think. I feel like you're a little busy.
Yeah, understatement. Yep.
So, how did you get in your profession?
I knew I wanted to be a lawyer, and I also have come from a long line of business owners. So I have a few professions, I guess you could say. I'm an immigration attorney, law firm owner, but I'm also a law practice management, small business consultant, author, professor, podcaster. I'd say wanting to give back to the small business community, coming from a long line of entrepreneurs, but then also focus on human rights and international related matters and cultures made me focus on immigration as a practice area within my area of law. So it's a combination. I added the second business in the last 6 years during the pandemic time, but primarily my firm is 17 years old. And I've been just moving up the ranks in my space as an immigration lawyer and board certified in Texas. And since immigration's federal, we are able to practice all over the world actually on US immigration related matters. And so it's awesome in the area of remote practice when you can pretty much be anywhere. I was actually running my law firm from Mexico last week with my newly connected Starlink internet at the ranch. So anyway,
Nice.
yeah.
Nice. Yeah, the being able to work virtually, man, it's just ever since COVID, it's been like so much more practical and popular and doable. And yeah,
I'm grateful for it because otherwise I wouldn't have been able to do a hearing and some other calls and interviews I had last week while I was there. So we're getting there. Maybe I
it's
just need to
amazing.
get a stronger account or something. I don't know.
Yeah, you're gonna have to pay for the upgrade. I think
Yeah.
that's part of the deal, right? So tell me, I've got your why on
Mhm.
wanting to help people, and that's super cool. Why did you build because you've got a pretty large practice now? Why did you just not keep it small? And what was your motivation there?
I think the reason was is that to have more flexibility. I know that can be a catch-22 because sometimes you might have less freedom and flexibility as you grow bigger, but depending on how you do build it. But I didn't want it to depend solely on me. So with the team that we have, I am able to get away a week or two here or there, and we're continuing to grow and build at a sustainable rate because I see when things grow too quickly that you lose quality and falls apart a little bit and you have to go back and rebuild. So it really was to give me the flexibility to pursue my other interests, to have my time with my family. And that was the reason I saw like I got this far. Why don't I can grow a little bit more, have a little bit more independence? And my current plan is to continue to build on the partnership track to sell equity to my firm to be able to have have partners and to have some more autonomy to for me to do my other projects as well.
I love it. I love it. Yeah, it's funny getting into this business. You feel like you got all these people that have businesses, but a business, at least how we define it in Action Coach, is a profitable enterprise that can run without you. And most people just have jobs, frankly, because they can't leave their business and their business would die without them. It's like, in fact, most of them have low paying jobs, which is really the sad thing about it. Get something that's sellable, that's making money, that it can run without you. So I think it's brilliant.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And I think a lot of business owners don't realize that or they don't want to admit it because it's painful because they started their business to have that independence probably, or maybe they weren't a really good
Yes.
employee. They were a better employer than employee.
Yeah,
But you do have to
true.
reflect and make sure it's making sense. And then I think a lot of times we talk about succession planning or what's your plan for selling the practice or succession planning in general. And that's really when you come
Yeah.
to the moment of realization. Is it sellable? What is it worth? How do you make that happen? And I think a lot of in the practice of law, so we're business owners, but we're also lawyers. So we have a whole lot of layer of
Mm.
added law restrictions on ourselves. We really haven't been able to sell practices, but for the last 40-ish plus years, we weren't able to market in the last, except for the last 40 plus ish years. So we're
Mhm.
in that neophyte stage of like how to prepare our firms for sale. And usually it was like add another partner's name on it and then somebody disappears and then add another one. But if you're more of a small mom and pop type of operation, how do you make that happen? And I think that's what I'm also working towards, helping law firm owners navigate that, because we don't have a lot of guidance and expertise in that space. And it's not the same as just other businesses. Law firms are special. In many cases, a non-lawyer can't own a law firm, right? So you can't just
Mm.
give it to your spouse or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's a really good point. I think in some ways, a lot of medical practices might have some similar
Mhm.
challenges in that it's sort of trading time for money until you build it up and have somebody that can really run it. And now you're doing more leadership and management versus just billing hourly, in other words.
Yeah, like that whole E-Myth, like the technician, the manager, and the entrepreneur concept. And I feel like I keep going between the manager and the entrepreneur, like oscillating between the two. And I'm just trying to get the right team members in the right places so that I can stay in the entrepreneur space. So that's what I'm working
I
on.
love it. What's one of your biggest kind of aha moments owning a business that you could share with others so maybe they don't make the same mistake?
I think one thing that I keep going back to is, when do you do the thing yourself and when do you hire someone to do the thing, whatever it may be. I think I got good at delegating, the concept of I needed to delegate, but I do find that's a shortcoming for a lot of business owners. They're still wanting to feel like they're connected, and that I don't know if it's a psychological need to feel needed, or they just don't know how to get out of giving away a lot of duties. But even just this last week or two, I've been thinking, what of all the stuff I do should I be delegating? I think that's another good point, is maybe you feel good about your delegating and management, but you're as you grow, you're gonna grow as in learning. It doesn't have to mean grow as in numbers or staff. Grow whatever you define that. You should
Hmm.
evaluate that on a regular basis, like a time audit, an energy audit, and delegation evaluation of what your job description and duties are. And yeah, I think those are some of my big ones that I would say are good pieces, nuggets of advice.
I love that you mentioned time audit and energy audit because the stuff you delegate first is the cheapest stuff to get rid
Mhm.
of usually, and it should be the stuff that costs you the most energy, right? If you can get the intersection of those things, for instance, I hate detail stuff and bookkeeping and all that kind of
Mhm.
this is not my jam.
Mhm.
And I can pay somebody that can do it super fast and better, and I don't have to deal with it. So that was like the first things, that all the detail stuff, I'm not a detail guy. So I got rid of that first, right? And then you get so much more energy because you're not avoiding the stuff that you don't like to do anyway.
No,
I think
I
with
agree.
delegation, yeah, the other thing with delegation is you got to have the right person, right? And then you got to figure
Mhm.
out how to record the task that you're doing so that somebody else can do it. And if you do those things and give them good feedback, they can have success. But I know so many business owners that they say they delegate, and I put that in
Mhm.
quotes, they delegate a task, but they haven't really told the worker what success looks like.
Right. Yeah. So
How,
that's why I see that being such a big hole in a business owner's success, is the delegation. Because it's like what to delegate, how to monitor the delegation. And it's not, delegating is like a subsection within the management. You also want to find the right people and grow them and keep them engaged and find room. The ones who are A players, you've got to give them space to grow, or else they're going to
mm,
leave. If they see a glass ceiling and
mhm.
they can't, there's nowhere for them to go. And so that's another part of it. It's like you have to, if you want to keep those people, you probably either have to keep creating opportunities for them to want to stay, if that's aligned with your own goals as well.
That's brilliant. So how do you do that?
How
I
do
mean,
you?
like, can you give me an example? Yeah, because it's like, oh, what you said is so important, and I think you kind of you got to have a career path for these folks, right? If you're going to bring in killers, they got to have a career path. So how do you find the right people, and then how do you build that path for them? What's been your kind of your success with that?
I think you have to have an honest conversation with them before they join your team as to what are your short-term, long-term goals. And then as you onboard them and get them in the fold, you've got to have those regular conversations. And then you need to be I think about chess a few steps ahead to making sure that
Mm.
you've got that you've got a place for them to grow and that they want to stay with you. So it is a lot of forethought and it's not easy, but a good reminder to keep those A players, to capture them, engage them, and keep them wanting to grow with your firm.
It's so true. It's so true. And the other thing is they've got to be able to make decisions, right? And if they're going to grow and you're going to grow as a firm, you got to have people under you and they got to know their decision making parameters. But in those parameters, you got to trust them to actually make the right call. And that keeps them engaged as well.
That's true because if they don't have that independence or they can't make decisions, then they're just latching on to you to do that. And then that's not independence for you. You just like I once did this personality assessment on an attorney before I hired them, and it was the Profile XT, and it had a 1 out of 10 for independence, and the candidate was a 1, and I was like, no way,
Mm.
this is just an overpriced employee that is going to require my approval at all of every step. So I'm going to have to be there making decisions for them. So that's not what I need in an attorney.
That's not a good fit. That's brilliant. I didn't know about this. What's this test called?
It's been a while since I used it, but it was called Profile XT. It was just a very
Huh.
detailed. There's like DISC assessment. And there's other ones out there, but it had
Yep.
the 1 to 10
Yep.
on energy, 1 to 10 on independence. So it was gauging a lot of different aspects that I think sometimes it can be hard to get from just a regular interview, especially if you're not trained at asking the right questions, because behavioral questions are great at that. But sometimes you might just skip over some things and people say what they want to hear, you want to hear. I think a lot of business owners are not really the best at interviewing per se. So that's why I also get
It's
help
true.
around my team to help fill in the gaps. I'm usually like the last person, if I am at all, the person to interview someone.
Yeah, I love it. Make it through everybody else first, and then if you got to be the final one, that's great. I had some clients that the leaders were interviewing everyone, and I'm like, would you?
Whoa.
Why would you do that? That's great. That's backwards. You have the
Hmm.
managers interview them, and then if you feel like you got to step in and do a final, then that's fine. But no, you have the people below you do the interviewing, and then let them screen out the bad ones first.
Yeah, and maybe it's just you and you don't have any other team members. But as soon as you do and you have more of a leadership suite, you need to make sure that you're delegating that and you're growing them because like you're empowering them to be better managers in HR and leadership management, all of that.
Yes, yes, that's awesome. All right, so tell me about you built some tech too, didn't you?
We I let's see. I have my podcast and I interview a lot of legal tech leaders. I haven't built any tech myself, but I am on the ABA Tech Show board and been on for a few years. But I do invest in some small legal tech companies and I'm constantly doing consulting or advising and teaching on legal tech or tech in general to be leveraged for small business and law firms. I'd say that in law practice management, which is like where law and small business collide, my subsection within that is legal tech is a focus area. I once ran my law firm from Dubai in 2011, so I really had to figure out how to use the existing tech. And pretty much ever since then, I've just always been at the forefront of what's new, latest, and greatest, and trying to leverage that as much as possible for efficiencies and mobility and all of that.
Man, that's the hours difference between Dubai
Oh
and the
my God.
US had to be a bugger,
It was
didn't
like
it?
10 and 11. It was a lot. I called myself mommy by day. I had my infant son and I'd go do play dates and stuff. and swim class. And then around 2 p.m. Dubai time, I got the nanny involved and then I started working my day until about 10 p.m. And she helped me get him to sleep and things like that. And it was a bit intense, but yeah, I wasn't there too long, but it was long enough to really have to figure out how to leverage the technology. So when I came back in 2012, I already was keeping that mentality like, how can I
Uh,
run my firm with a hybrid situation where I don't have to have the clients come in person? And this might sound like, oh my goodness, we already know that. In 2011, there was like, I could count on one hand how many law firms I knew doing something like that. And
yeah.
but the so when the pandemic came, I was like, I've already been doing this. And so now I've just got it on a larger scale with a little different set of rules, better technology, and that's really when the legal industry really changed a lot of their mentality. The tech had already been there, but they just hadn't changed. Like, for example, we only were able to file electronically before immigration court in the last handful of years. Before we had to
Hmm.
go print out a whole bunch of paper and drop it off and have it date stamped in front of a clerk. But yet, all these other courts had already digitalized. So, when the agency that adjudicates can't digitalizes and gets up to speed, then that's when we can also reciprocate because that's what held a lot of my practice area behind because we were dependent on the agencies we interacted with.
Yeah, yeah, it's the the whole thing with COVID really changed all that, but I know how you I what you mean about training yourself because even
Mhm.
when I started my business, I had an office suite, but it was like you got a different office every day, so you leave everything in your backpack, and
Oh, yeah.
that was a pain back then, but man, you get really good at being mobile. If I have my backpack, I don't care where I'm at, I'm good, right?
Well,
You just get really
same,
good at it.
same. Like, I have
Yeah,
my travel bricks of my energy power bricks. I have 3 of them. I keep my Anchor ones now because they can charge my laptop, my headsets, my everything. I have my light, my headset, and my laptop, and yeah, well, earlier today, I was working from the lobby of my daughter's doctor's office, or I'll be on the bus somewhere. I don't know. I'll be anywhere at this point.
yeah, it just doesn't matter. It's
It
so
doesn't.
great.
Yeah.
What is the biggest thing going on in tech and law right now?
I think that the story a few years ago was which case management softwares, which almost every law firm has a case management software. It's like our main place to put our notes and connects with billing and potential
Sure.
forms and thing. I think a lot of them were like, how do we adapt it to AI? That was like, especially if they had more of a legacy format, a platform, and how it was built. Now new programs are being built. People are vibe coding. People are creating their own programs. Claude Cowork, Claude for Law. Now people are trying to do stuff on their own. I think it's a major disruptor in that respect. I think about the Rogers innovation curve and the innovator and then the early adopter. I consider myself probably the end of the innovator and the beginning of the early adopter. So I'm paying attention to that. But I feel like a lot of the conversations we had in the legal space was like, oh, this is AI. Now it's like, depending on where you are in your adoption, you might be like vibe coding and creating your own program, or you might still be back in a few years ago when ChatGPT first came out. But honestly, I think the firms that learn to use AI the most efficiently, ethically, confidentiality and minded are going to be able to take a lot of the other inefficient firms out of business because they're going to be able to scale and create a better client service experience. And that's where we're at. We're in this funky disruption space. And I think a lot of lawyers are like putting their afraid hat on. Oh no, what's going to happen? But really, the ways they should put it is where if they are ahead of the game or paying attention and educating themselves, if they haven't to this day, just get on with it. Come on, because it's not going away.
Mhm.
And then it's just try to key it up to speed on improving the client experience, improving efficiency, maybe reducing potential costs and or increasing profitability because you're able to do things more efficiently. And then you just have to keep updating and training yourself. You've got to block off
Mm.
time in your week to be constantly learning, listening to YouTube, listening to webinars, watching, experimenting, and creating a culture in your firm or business where others are doing that too. Every week we share a tech minute, or it's more than a minute, but like, how are you using AI? How are you using the programs that we have available give us a success tip. And then the idea is that helps encourage the rest of the team. And so they get excited. And how else are we going to know? I think that's the thing. A lot of professions, you're supposed to be the expert in everything. So you don't feel
Mm.
comfortable being at bottom of the totem pole. But a lot of us are. A lot of us have been. The people who are doing the speeches on AI are the ones who experimented with it a few years ago at the beginning. It's not like but now exponentially, they have a lot more knowledge than the people who are just approaching it. But it really just takes putting effort and learning it, just like you put into running a business.
Yeah, yeah. What's the biggest risk in your opinion? Privacy, obviously.
I think the risk is probably if you take away privacy and confidentiality, I think the biggest risk is not experimenting and not evaluating and staying on top of things of like how you can improve the client experience because the businesses that are going to they're going to people are going to take note. Either they're going to have a more smooth experience or they're going to charge less or they're going to give greater value for the same amount of a fee. So I that's the way I look at it. Even writing and research, those are the most time consuming in law. Those are where you usually have to get higher paid staff to do that, more expertise. If that can be delegated to more AI tools and you can be more efficient, then oh my goodness, that's a huge game changer right there. And that's what we're seeing right now. Yeah, I guess we should be excited. We're in this wild west of trying to figure out how to navigate AI and it's changing every minute. So just like my practice area of immigration. So.
Yeah, I'm sure that's never the same for varies from administration to administration and all these other moving parts on that thing, right? It's got to be
You're
crazy.
right. Yeah.
So, okay, let me ask you three quick questions then
Okay.
that I ask everybody. What do you want to be when you grow up?
I want to be able to run around the world and go to my little places I want to travel to and just read, talk to people, speak. And so I'm working on it. I'm getting there. So it's just have the flexibility to run around the world to where the weather is great, where I'm there at the time, and just enjoy the people I'm with, but and the projects I'm working on, and having the more of ownership of my schedule. So.
That's beautiful. Yeah, freedom and travel and learning and relaxing. That's beautiful.
Mhm.
What about if you're an animal, what kind of animal would you be?
I think it'd be one that's got a lot of energy and likes to go explore and doesn't it would probably be the opposite of a cat because I think cats sit around and just lays we were at the ranch in Mexico, some cats adopted us and they were just sitting around and just enjoying the sun and doing nothing and playing around a little bit, but then napping. I don't know, probably cheetah, a leopard or something. I'm not sure. Or maybe a dolphin. It always seems like they're moving around, exploring.
Dolphins, they sure seem like they're having fun too, right? They're
Yeah,
they're, just, they're
they
hanging
do,
out in their group.
they hang around and they're social.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. And then last question, what do you want to be remembered for?
I think it's a combination of helping a lot of people with navigate complex immigration and legal matters and improving people's lives incrementally just by them getting work authorization or getting a status and then that trickles down to helping them build a better life for their families. And then on the business side, it's to help business owners just have more flexibility and freedom of their schedule and to have more time with their families if that's what accomplish the goals, whatever that success looks like for them. And by my
Yes.
book, my podcast, my teaching, my webinars, consulting, it's just retreats. It's just people learn different ways, right? And so whatever it
Yes.
takes, they have to hear it multiple times, they have to feel it, learn it, experience it. And sometimes then finally they get a eureka and they're like, and then they move to the next level. And so just being a part of that journey to help guide them so they don't have to reinvent the wheel. So that's what I want to be remembered for on the business side and immigration and law. It's just help. I know we've been changing a lot of people's lives these last 17 years with having the firm. So I'm grateful for that opportunity. And I think I was thinking about people should be able to attend their own funeral because it's like that seems to be the only time when people really come out and
Yes.
thank you for what you do. But there should be more opportunities where people can celebrate people's efforts and impact on their lives. And I think that's another reminder just to thank people who've been instrumental as a mentor or a guide in your life as well. So That's a good
Yeah,
question.
that's brilliant. I moved around a lot, and because I was in broadcasting and ran different operations and et cetera, and I left, and that's a thing. I actually got that because when you're leaving and going somewhere physically a long ways away, people do tell you all those things, or maybe not all of them. But I literally said it's kind of like going to your own funeral. Like you get that experience, and it's amazing how the little things you do for people mean as much as the big things. And that's,
Yeah.
that's caring
Yeah.
for people and listening and pulling somebody aside when they had a bad day, and just the little stuff that makes all the difference. Well, Ruby, I thoroughly enjoyed it. What's the name of your podcast, by the way?
It's called Power Up Your Practice. It's where most podcasts can be found, and we focus on law practice management topics. So it's really great for law firm owners, managing attorneys, right hand associates, and those planning to start their own firm.
Wonderful. If we got any attorneys checking this one out, they got to check yours out too. Power up your practice. Thank you, Ruby. It was a wonderful
Thank you.
time.
You too. Thanks for
All
having me. I
right.
appreciate it.
Cheers.
If your business still depends on you for every decision, every problem, and every next step, it may be time to build differently. Visit warrenfiihr.com to learn how I help business owners build stronger teams, better systems, and businesses that can grow beyond them. Let's go!